And being that he was my very first nephew, and I only had one son, he was like a son to me. His father, many of you may know because of the media, had been incarcerated for years and still is incarcerated for a crime he committed back in his young years. So he basically had life, 25 to life. So Oscar didn't really have a father, so I did the best that I could as an uncle to give him an image of, what, a man, father, an uncle could be like. So we had a very, very close relationship. And I'll share this before I get into my story. On New Year's Eve, the night he was murdered, for whatever reason, God had prompted him on my heart. And from that, I was like, wow, I never text Oscar after 12 o'clock at night. But I went on and I texted him. I said, God loves you, Uncle loves you, and God loves you, Uncle loves you, and something else, I forget exactly at this moment in time. And, of course, as you know, that night he was murdered. And I say that to say, anytime someone is really prompted on your heart heavily, right, reach out to that person. Because you don't know, that may be your last opportunity to tell them that you love them, to share some form of love and hope. It may transform their lives at that moment in time. It may even save their life. And so that's real significant, that you feel the Spirit when God talks to you. Whatever way you feel God, God, and He puts someone on your heart, respond to that. Because it becomes really important. Because you never want to ask the question later. Like my sister suffers every day from the fact that she said, Oscar, take Bart. He was celebrating her birthday with her before he was murdered. December 31st is my sister's birthday, his mama's birthday. Him, his fiance, and his daughter was there at my mama's house celebrating her birthday. And he said, Mom, I'm going to San Francisco. She said, catch Bart. Catch Bart. And he caught Bart. And so every day she has to talk with God about, what if I would have never told him? God, why did you let me tell him to catch Bart? Because as we all know, he was murdered that night. So, we want to really always be in tune to our connection spiritually, because that's what really brings us through the trials and tribulations that we experience in life, your connection to people. There's some food for thought. I'm not an instructor. I've never taught before, but I'm going to give you what I can in hopes to stimulate some form of activism in you, because it is your babies. If you're looking at the time we're in now, and the amount of people that we see are dying at the hands of police brutality, black on black crime, brown on brown crime, and just people in general just doing crazy stuff, killing people like what happened at the school in Oakland. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? There's a time, we're in a state of emergency, especially children of color. So, if we have it tough now, and you don't act, what will your children have it like? What will you think about that? Will your babies have a chance for education? Will your babies have a chance to be able to go outside without the fear of being killed, either by the police or someone that looks just like them, or someone maybe that don't look like them because of the racism that exists? Will my baby go out there and just be raped and murdered? What is it? What kind of society are we preparing for our children? That's why you're here. Don't become educated to be miseducated. You hear me? Don't become educated to be miseducated. Understand why you're here. Become critical thinkers and save this world. It is in your hands. You are our future leaders, and our life and our future depends on you. Because if you really look at it, the United States is falling. It's falling. Pay attention to the times, because this is real. And if you're sleepwalking, when you open your eyes, it'll be a whole different world. And then you're asking yourself what happened. Anyway, let me get back. Bring myself back. Okay, I'm basically here to talk to you about what police brutality is. And so I need to ask a couple of questions first, so help me. And you stole my question. How many of you, and I like to see hands, heard of Oscar Grant? Okay, at least 99%. Or, yeah, 99%. Okay. How many of you seen the video of Oscar Grant? Okay. How many of you know someone that's been killed by the police? Raise your hand. Okay, this class happens to be a small percent. How many of you know someone that's been harassed by the police? Okay. That's big. Okay. Now here's another good question. How many of you have ever been to a rally?
What?
Okay, not quite half, about a quarter. So we got some work to do. How many of you know what a protest is? Okay. So before I start, I'm going to give you a couple of definitions so that we can be all on the same page. Just basically help clear in our heads so that as I talk, I hope that you can better understand what I'm getting at as far as what police brutality is. And then some of the methods that we can take in order to hopefully change that culture that we're experiencing that's really just getting worse. So police, and this is Wikipedia, right? Police brutality is the wanted use of excessive force, usually physical, but potentially in the form of verbal attacks and psychological intimidation by police officers. And we have different forms of that. We have, of course, police misconduct, false arrest, intimidation, racial profiling, political repression. What Jerome was talking about, surveillance, abuse. They're watching us. If you're on Facebook or any kind of social network, they're watching you, reading every word you say, as we've seen all in the news recently. Sexual abuse and, of course, police corruption. Okay, so those are just some aspects and forms of police brutality. So here's some statistics, and basically it's from, and I'm going to give you some homework, or I'm going to make some suggestions, and maybe you'll do the other part of this, because that'll help me, because I can hear you say it one day somewhere standing up in front of a group of you. The Department of Justice keeps statistics on police brutality. Really is really underestimated on really actually how many police brutalities occur in the United States. They really don't want us to know. But believe this, it is very grave to this country at the extreme rate that it's happening. But anyway, from 1976 to 2000, 9,758 men, black and brown, has been killed by police officers. During that time period—
Can you say that one more time, Cephus?
Okay. From 1976, we're talking about a 24-year period, from 1976 to 2000, 9,574 black and brown men have been killed by police officers. It's a large number. Only 6 police officers were brought to trial during that time period. Only 6. Only 1 found guilty, and that was the officer that was the one that killed Malice Green in Cincinnati. Was that Cincinnati?
No, Detroit.
Detroit, I'm sorry. It's in Detroit. And that officer, even though he was found guilty, eventually got off because the jury pool, which was predominantly black, while they were sequestered, watched the movie. And I'm just giving you some background really quick. Watched this movie called Malcolm X, and they also watched some documentary on Rodney King. And because they watched that, when they came out and they gave their verdict, which was guilty, the defense attorney was able to argue that and made an appeal to the fact that they were tainted, or they came back biased because they had watched a so-called politically racist type of movie that helped taint their decision to cause his office to be guilty. Not so much what he did, because what he did was a direct violation of Malice Green, right? Everybody know it, coroners report everything, but the fact that because we watched the movie that was titled Malcolm X or Rodney King, which they did, they came back with a guilty plea, and then it was overturned, and he got to go home with a monitor on his ankle. So, you know, these are just some facts. This is the criminal justice system we're dealing with. And before I even go further than that, I want you to understand what institutionalized racism is. Do you know what institutionalized racism is? I'd like to see some hands so that I can be clear. Okay, some of us do. How many have heard the word white supremacy? Okay, so most heard the word white supremacy. Do you know what white supremacy is? Okay. So it becomes really important that you begin to grasp these terms, because in order for a movement or a revolution to take place, people have to first become knowledgeable and become aware of the issues that exist. What I mean by knowledgeable, you're not going to be a revolutionary or be a part of a revolution if you don't know what you're involved in or why you're there. And part of it has to be first from being educated, and this is an opportunity that I like, is because it gives me a chance just to kind of give you some snippets of some knowledge that can help you begin to think critically going forward in your life. So, white supremacy, I'm not going to read the whole definition, but I'm going to give you the academic use of the term white supremacy first. Okay, the term white supremacy is used in academic studies of racial power to denote a system of structural racism, which privilege white people over others regardless of presence or absence of racial hatred. And basically what that's saying is that it don't have to be a member of the KKK that calls you a nigger to represent white supremacy. Okay? So by white supremacy, I do not mean to allude only to the self-conscious racism of white supremacist hate groups. Right? I refer instead to a political, economic, and cultural system in which whites overwhelmingly control power and material resources, conscious and unconscious idea of white superiority and entitlements are widespread, and relations of white dominance and non-white subordination are daily reenacted across a broad array of institutions and social settings. Understand what white supremacy is. So when you hear that word, it's not like a dagger just at white people, because there's many white people that are morally right in their heart that really wants to rid themselves of any form of racism, but is totally unaware that they're privileged. And being privileged does not mean that you don't like me. It just so happens you are part of a structure that has been designed specifically to give you the opportunities to have much more than I. It's all by design, and it's for the sole purpose of maintaining that status quo white superiority. And if we live in a culture, this so-called United States, that's supposed to be diverse and have a constitution that says that everybody are entitled to some alienable rights, freedom, justice, and equality to all, that includes people of color. And in order for us to uplift and live to that standard, we must first somehow pull down this evil, this word, white supremacy, that exists and is so prevalent in the criminal justice system. So you will hear me say from a rooftop, it's a racist criminal justice system. It's by design. And when you hear judges say that there's two criminal justice systems, one for white people, one for black people, understand that to be true. Because what's happening with Trayvon Martin is real. He is in a black justice system, but it's not going to entitle to him the full rights that he's entitled to as a human being. That family is in trouble. This nation is in trouble. And when you see what happens in that system and realize that there's true facts that some people just are not entitled to, the rights that they're supposedly entitled to, understand that and understand what your mission is. It is you who must infiltrate the racist criminal justice system, which is dangerous, but you must infiltrate it with good heart, being consciously aware that if you're not, you will become a part of that culture, whether you're black or white, and be just as racist. I can be just as racist, a part of that culture. That's not my time, is it?
No, it's your time.
15 minutes already? Wow! I'm so sorry. I'll take a couple more minutes. Wow. You know, wow, that's, that was too bad. You know, but you get what I'm saying. I hope you can feel what I'm saying, because this is a state of emergency. It's a state of emergency for you. The last 20 years, 22 prisons have been built in the state of California, 2 educational institutions. Somebody's got to go into.
Can you tell that one more time?
In the last 20 years, 22 prisons been built in the state of California. What about the educational institution? Only 2.
Wow.
This is real. Just recently in Philadelphia, 2 judges are being incarcerated, and they may get 7 years for taking or sending juveniles to juvenile centers, children of color to juvenile center, and they got paid to do that because he was private prisons or private juvenile facilities. They got $2.4 million to send all the black kids, but specifically black and brown kids, to these juvenile halls because they got paid. These are 2 men in a racist criminal justice system sending our children to prison by design. What about all the black and brown kids that are dying in these streets? Again, your peers. And for the sisters of color, black and brown, where are your men? There are more of them locked up than there is in college. These young brothers in here, especially black ones, are a rare commodity today. You know, and that's real, you know what I'm saying? And what you have to realize is just how important your significance is. And you know, and I know my time is over, but I'm gonna give you a quick story just to show you how even I, or all of us, it can be duped by white supremacy. When my son was at Xavier, majoring in education to get his degree, he got it there at Xavier, then he went on to Minnesota and got his master's. He said, "Dad, I want to teach in the hood." Teach in the hood? Yeah, I want to teach in Chicago hood. Like Chicago hood? You don't even know nothing about Chicago, especially Chicago hood, right? You know, because we were blessed in some ways to grow up in the suburbs and you know, I went to Maui High right here from Hayward, you know, back in the day in the 70s. So what I'm getting at is that I'm like, what? Bro, you went to school to get education, right? To make some money, right? Supremacy, imperialism, capitalism, I'm duped, right? Because what you go into school for is to get money, not to save this world. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm like, boy, you got to be crazy. He said, "Dad, but no, that's where the help is needed." That's where the help is needed. That's where the help is needed. Get educated. Don't turn your back on the brother that you see over on the side of the road with his hands behind his back or down, face down, and think like I used to think, what did the brother do? What's the brother do? Because it's always what he did. You see what I'm saying? That's how we get duped, because it's not always he had done anything wrong.
That's right.
So we are our brother's keeper.
That's right.
You are here to have a vision to change this world. Do not get educated to be miseducated. And because my time is short, and I'm going to keep to the program, I have 3 books that I'd like you to consider getting. The very first one is A New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. If you haven't got this book, please get it. It's a dynamite book, because she got some stuff in here that will enlighten you to understand this course that you're on and how you got to navigate it. And she also says in here, which is facts, there are more black men incarcerated today than there were at the end of slavery.
Right.
There are more.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
How many of you know? Raise your hands.
How many of you knew that?
I'm reading
One.
papers.
Okay, see, there are more black men incarcerated today than there were in slavery. There are more black men in prison than there is today in colleges.
Something wrong with that.
Something wrong with the picture.
That's right.
Another good book, especially for people of color, I'm not going to say people of color.
That's right, everybody.
Because you have to become knowledge. You know, it's called, this word called empathy. You know, can you walk in my shoes and feel what I feel? And the only way to do that is you got to have some empathy for people. Compassion. And not think it's just an isolated situation that doesn't have nothing to do with my life, because we're all connected. But anyway, it's called Black on Black Violence, The Psychodynamics of Black Self-Annihilation in the Service of White Domination, White Supremacy.
Wow.
And it's by Amos Brown. Good book. Yes. And the last one, if you wanted to kind of understand the Oscar Grant movement and what happened in there, we do have a book called Grant Justice. And it's Lesson Learned, Fighting for Justice in the Murder of Oscar Grant. And it has questions, it has a timeline, and it has questions that help prompt the idea of what activism is all about and getting involved and bring about a change. You know, I'm sorry I didn't really kind of get into the depth of it.
Yeah,
But my
you
wife
did.
and I actually just got, well, not just got back, we was down in Florida and met the family of Trayvon, and we just got an email today. I'm actually supposed to be at Cal Berkeley at this diversity, I forget what it's called, panel speaking. I'm gonna have to break that because we just got word this morning, they putting us on a program in LA with the Trayvon family. So we'll be in LA next Thursday.
This Thursday. This Thursday.
I mean, oh, that's right, we'll be there this Thursday, not next Thursday, this Thursday. So we just got put on a program, we just got to work this morning. And much love to my wife because she diligently makes sure that she stay in contact. She sees all this, and I mean,
I'm a slave driver on here now.
no, she's a woman that has compassion and a love for people. And in order to effect a change, right, you have to have love in your heart. And if anything can help bring that love in your heart, think about your babies. At some point, you're going to have children. And you're going to want the best for them. You're going to want them to have opportunities in this world that you didn't have. You're not going to want them to face some of the elements and things that we're facing today in the society that you're facing. And then we're going to ensure that they're going to have some form of life, liberty, and justice. It starts with you. Be a part of the movement. Assist, join, shout, yell, share with your friends, bring friends along, but be a part of it. Do not sit idle, because that in itself is a crime.
That's right. Teach.
Change this world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. What do all of you think? I'm going to go ahead and invoke my right to take 10 minutes. Cut me off right at 10. And then we're going to have about 15 minutes to do question and answer for the panelists. And please, at that point, express yourselves, ask questions, say your opinions, say what you feel, what you think about the issue that were raised. I wish, first I want to thank Cephus, I want to thank Gerald. I think it's a great honor. That sometimes the elders in many cultures talk about who you associate with will impact your consciousness. If you want to hang out with people who don't have much consciousness, you might end up with not much consciousness. But if you hang out with people who have good wisdom and good courage and heart and strength, they will impact you and they will affect the way you see the world. I want to tell you a little bit about Carlos Padilla, and I want to tell you a little bit about Danny Garcia, for they were supposed to be here today, but they are not. I cannot be them, but I can tell you a little bit about them. Danny